Hi everyone, your favorite live streamer here, MJ. Welcome on Twitch, YouTube, and Twitter Live. And if you haven't been watching on Twitter Live, please come to Twitch or YouTube because I can't see your comments. And that is something that's an issue with Twitch, not with it, with Prism. Tonight we got some Tondania. I've been drinking. I've been feeling pretty bad. I'm going to talk about that a little bit. And I've got a cup full of ice here that I got from Win-Win's. My pink cup, which you know I love pink. Okay, so yeah, I'm going to pour some of that in there. Just going to try to make one for the whole night. Mike, how you doing? Fist bump to you. All right, good to see you. Got the podium. You're the first one here. Haven't been on much lately, and I've been feeling. Actually, whoa! Look down at my belt. It's coming undone. I'm in a public park. That could actually be a. Well, thank you. I appreciate it, Mike. Thank you. I appreciate your support over the years. Yeah, I'm in a public park and my belt's coming undone. That could be bad. Oh, my goodness. So, as many of you know, I'm not a fan of the messenger RNA COVID-19 vaccines. And so I chose not to get one of those. I got the Taiwan protein subunit by Metagen, and it's turned out to be, according to all the trials that have been done so far, it's very, very effective. It's one of the best, actually. I got my second shot of it. Today's Thursday, so a week ago yesterday, last Wednesday, and I've been having some headaches and a lot of lethargy. Now the problem with me is, you guys know me, I'm always pushing myself to the limits, with things, staying up late and working and doing things, and I don't get enough sleep. So I just figured it was plain old sleep deprivation, which is something I suffer from all the time, But the more I thought about it, the more it did feel kind of like the flu. So I guess what I'm saying is, I think I just had a mild, normal reaction, but it's nothing like what I've heard. I mean, wow. My wife's father won't take any vaccine because he's scared, because he hears about the deaths and stuff, It's pretty amazing. Now, local cases are down to zero. Many days in a row we'll have zero. A lot of, all the cases are imported, so not a lot of them, but like, today we had 7, yesterday we had 4, things like that. People coming back to Taiwan, some workers coming here. Death rates have slowed down. So the government has done a very good job of getting things under control. Now, the only problem that I see is that the Metagen vaccine being made in Taiwan is not exactly universally accepted. There's something going on with the drug company cartels. They want everybody to take the big 3 or something. But Indonesia, Philippines, and Palau recognize Taiwan vaccines, so fully vaccinated Taiwanese and residents like me can travel to those countries. Now, if you ask me, Palau, boy, I've been wanting to go to Palau since the 80s. So if I couldn't go anywhere in the world to be quite honest with you. I'd be perfectly happy living out the rest of my life in Taiwan. It is unbelievable there. So, local time is 23:02, 2 minutes after 11 p.m. The road that leads to the highway is right over there. I'm in the industrial park, not too far from my home. This is a place I've never been before for live stream. It's one of these little exercise parks, you know. That thing there is kind of like a fake elliptical machine, except it doesn't do ellipticals, you know. And this, I'm just going to show you down here. That's the rest of the park down there. And there's another section opposite of the same thing. Let me take my phone out of the clamp just for a second. That's a, come on. Hello? Yeah. Those things there are for doing back bends. And I might do those later. And so are those things over there. It's hard to see, but those things, those guys right there are for like exercises to stretch your back out. And I think before I go home, yeah, I think I'm going to be doing that before I go home. Okay, putting this back in the clamp. There you go. So Taiwan is, whoops, I hate when I do that. Taiwan is very safe. And I'm just sitting out here and drinking rum and soda water. So there you go. That's what kind of place this is. So while we're having low numbers of COVID-19 and the deaths are way down and more and more people are getting vaccinated, countries have been donating AZ, Moderna, and some Pfizer, BioNTech. You know, it's pretty common. But we had a deadly fire, and it was in Kaohsiung, and boy, was it bad. I'm going to show you this. Death toll, this is just from a couple hours. Death toll, Kaohsiung fire climbs to 46. Now, earlier today, it was 9, and it keeps going up. Injuries reached 41. These numbers here came out a couple hours ago, and they're already outdated. So this is, you can read it, a fire that broke out in a commercial and residential building in Kaohsiung early Thursday morning. And when they mean early Thursday morning, they mean between 2:30 and 3 a.m., I believe. Claiming 46 lives, less 41 people injured. You can't really tell from this photo. Let me move this over this way because I want to block my face rather than the comments. Okay, so. Well, thank you. But there's no way that I could afford to live in the U.S., Mike. There's no healthcare system. Okay. Now, I know people are going to argue with me because, of course, there's healthcare. What I mean is there's no national healthcare system that, oh, I just got a notification on my watch from Taiwan News. It still says that the death toll is 46. Mark, fist bump to you. But I mean, I have to see a cardiologist every month and get medicine. I mean, laser surgery on my eyes, $10. Surgery on my thumb, $10. I can't. America's great if you have a good job because health insurance is provided by an employer. Here in Taiwan, health insurance is provided by the government, and it's really good. And virtually all doctors are in that system. Mark, the building is over 40 years old, and here's the problem. Let me get rid of this. The bottom section, the bottom 6 floors were unused for a long time. That's the commercial section. But 7th floor and up was residential, and there are over 100 units in there, and they're all elderly, disabled. Some of the patients, understand, were mentally impaired, and so couldn't get out. One woman works in Taiwan, and she's from Kaohsiung, but she works in Taiwan, and she rushed back home. Her brother lives in the building with her parents, but her parents were at home and the brother was at work, and they can't find him. This is not looking good. So it burned out the whole bottom section of the building, but it filled the interior and the residential spaces with smoke. So almost all of those people who died, virtually all of them died because of smoke inhalation. And that is not a good way to go. One story that I read today was a guy in his 40s woke up about 3 o'clock in the morning because he heard people shouting, and his room was full of smoke. I don't know if you have ever done that. I don't know if you've ever woken up to smoke and not realize it was smoke. Like, not much, but I remember my dad was cooking bacon, and when you're asleep, you can't smell. I don't know if you guys realize that or not. When my dad was cooking bacon, I couldn't smell it until I woke up. I sat up, and then I could smell it. But the whole time you're cooking bacon, I was asleep. If people think there's a fire, it'll wake me up. It might not. Oh, this is cool. I just got a message from Sean, Taiwan Sean. So, 40-year-old guy gets out of his room, his apartment, hits the elevator, makes it to the first floor. The door's open. It's all on fire. No way to get out. So he said that he and the people who were with him went to the basement. Yes, it is. Yes. Now the thing is you can survive it if you get the appropriate treatment afterwards. But it's funny because my wife likes Grey's Anatomy. And there was an episode about that, about a doctor who, there's some fire victims. The doctor was treating a patient in the ER and got called away, and she forgot to look in the patient's mouth and the throat. There was soot. And they didn't, that's why I got it oriented that way. There was soot indicating that the person had inhaled smoke. And because the doctor was distracted, this patient didn't get the treatment and they died. But if you get the treatment, you have a better chance of surviving. So these people went to the basement. They opened the doors, the elevator doors opened up, and they jumped out, and everywhere there was fire, and they couldn't get out. So they went to the basement. And believe it or not, they found a way out from there. But the guy said, as soon as they got out, like literally 5 minutes later, the power went out in the whole building. So would have been stuck in the elevator. That would not have been fun. And you go, you can, push the access panel up and get out. Yeah, not if you're 7 years old. And disabled or whatever. And then, so you're 40 years old and you can get out. But there's, The elevator car is full of other people that you can't leave them there. You got to get them out. And then they're all standing on top of the elevator. Then what do you do? Okay, we got to climb up these greasy cables, guys. What do you think? It's like, it never works out like in the movies, you know. So that's why they say don't take the elevators in those emergencies, because if the power goes off, you're not going to fall. I mean, the fail-safes on the elevators, they work if the cable's completely cut. But you just can't get out. Stuck between floors. There's no door. At the very least, you know, what's going to happen is a fire rescue person is going to break through the door above you. They got to figure out where you are, break through the door above you, rappel down, and lift you out. I would feel really bad if someone got hurt or lost their life trying to save me. That would be hard to live with. But that's what happened. So now I'm going to say this. I told you floors 1 through 6, the commercial areas of the store, had not been rented for a long, long time. And the building is 40 years old, and nobody wants to live there. It's run down. I've already heard one person suggest that the fire may have been purposeful. Boy, if that's the case, what a world, huh? Man, oh man. So anyway, that's what's going on. What's been going on with you guys? I'm sorry I haven't been on, but like I said, I've been feeling really lousy. Now, those of you who might be watching on Twitter Live, please come over to YouTube or Twitch, and we get the comments right here burned on the screen. Because if you're on Twitter Live, you can see and you can comment it amongst yourself. Actually, you can say anything you want about me because I can't see it. But if you want to interact with the other folks, then we have Twitch comments working too. So not much going on with me. I'm just trying to relax and take it easy. That's nice. Incredibly quiet. That's great. Make a nice studio. Yep, gotta have elevators. So the other day we went somewhere. It's kind of funny. We went to this little place, and let me show you a couple of things that happened. The other night, 4-day-old moon and the planet Venus were out together, and boy was it beautiful. I don't know if you guys saw that. Right now we're in the first quarter, but see the moon now, it's behind some clouds. But when I saw that with that bright Venus, that was beautiful. Now I went to a place, outdoor place, and they had these really cute, like swan bows. And apparently they had motors on them, but they took them out. It has a wheel in it with a rudder, and all this is disconnected. But those things are so funny, and they're on trailers. They're using them on a lake. I just think it was so funny. But we were overlooking the Taiwan Strait, and this is what it looked like at sunset between the buildings there. Well, now I live in a standalone house, so My standalone house doesn't have an elevator. Many Taiwan houses do. The next house I get will have an elevator. That's for sure. So Taiwan straight. Elevators in private homes are quite common in Taiwan. It makes it really nice, you know, for elderly parents and grandparents, because then they can you got complete mobility, you know, within the house. Now, you guys remember Mr. Wu's, right? Old Mr. Wu's. I took this picture about an hour ago. There's a little light spot in the center of the roll-down door. That's the mail slot. Now, there's lights on inside, but the lanterns are off, you know, and the yeah, it really, really is. It's beautiful. It's out tonight too. Yeah, it's going to be out for probably several more weeks anyway. But in the early evening, you know, just check it out. It's going to be not too far, you know, behind the sun in that area of the sky. But anyway, every time I've gone by Mr. Wu's, it's not been open, and they well, before, when it was open, I'd go by, he never had any customers. So I think he's just running out of money, because even without customers, you still have to stock the food in case you have customers. You can't just, you know, keep the same food for two weeks, 3 weeks, you know, if customers don't come, and then, you know, so. Now there was some drama. There's some weird stuff going on with Mr. Wu, and I don't want to get into it, you know, because it doesn't really matter. But you know, I like Mr. Wu. He was very supportive of me, you know, when I was live streaming from his place, and he even asked me a couple times to bring my guitar down there and just jam, because the customers just like hearing me play. Because I mean, who has access to stuff like that? You know what I'm saying? So, but then he did something weird, and it just, I don't know. And I heard some other people saying that he just isn't clear about his business arrangements and so forth. And so anyway, so a good friend of mine named Will, he and his wife are moving back to the States, and I'm sad to see him go. But I had borrowed Will's acoustic guitar. Actually, I had it for about 4 months. He went back to the States, and this has to do with him leaving. Went back to the States to check on the situation there, and he came back to Taiwan. He's got to move. And so I've had this guitar for, now that I think about it, I think I've had his guitar for about 6 months. And so I talked to him the other day. I said, all right, so I got to get that back to you so you can take it back with you. And he said to me, he said, well, if you want it, I'd like for you to have it. And I'm like, wow. Let me show it to you. It's really nice. This is like it's hanging on the wall in my studio. I don't know if that's curly maple or what that is, but look at that. It's obviously an acoustic guitar, but look at that. I mean, wow. And it's hanging on a hook in my studio, and it's SV, like Sierra Victor, SV. Mike, I tell you, those tadpole trikes are amazing, aren't they? And I have been looking, and you're right, it is awe-inspiring, which is why I like the scriptures and the scriptural descriptions when Yahweh, Jehovah, said to Abraham, look in the sky at the stars, and I'm going to make your offspring as numerous or more numerous than the stars in the sky. I mean, that's something that you can look up in the sky and like, that's like, holy cow. No, it's not vintage. No, I mean, it might be 10 years old. Well, yeah. Something. It's a good question. It has a serial number. I'm sure I could check with the company, but I've known him for about 10 or 12 years, and he's had it the whole time that I've known him. So maybe it's could be 15, could be 20. I don't know. I don't know if he got it in Taiwan, or if he got it. I don't know if he got it in Taiwan, or if he got it, in the States and brought it here. I think he got it in Taiwan, but I might be wrong. But I mean, I really, really like this on it. I mean, the veneer. Of course, it's not the best shot because I have the lights on the studio and my studio monitors and stuff for casting a shadow on it, things, but yeah. So, but you reminded me when I was in Thailand years ago with Mr. Bancho. Let me answer this. The answer to that question, Mark, is, and okay, I bought new glasses. I should be wearing them now. They're for computer. They have no far sight. They only have medium and close, right? And so if I look at this, I can read the thing, but I might say the wrong person's name. Okay, but actually, if I go like this, you're looking at my nose. That's when it is in focus. The answer to that question, Mark, is it depends how well you maintain them. But with electric guitars, they generally get mellower. And also, the bizarre thing is, the further back in time you go, the more primitive the technology, which often sounds better. I remember I was in North Carolina. I had my first road gig, and I lost a guitar. I lost a white custom Les Paul. I lost it. I was looking for a replacement, getting ready to go out on the road. And a guy had, I'm not kidding, an original, and I know these guitars, and I saw the case and everything in order to see it. He had an original 1952 gold top Les Paul, the first year Les Pauls were made. 1952 gold top Les Paul with a trapeze tailpiece, and he was selling it for $500. Do you know how much that guitar would be worth now? You could probably put 3 zeros on the end of that. I mean, that guitar would be worth. But I didn't buy it because it wouldn't tune. And I guess it's a good thing I didn't buy it, because everything I own I modify, and I would have taken out that trapeze tailpiece, which was original, and I probably would have thrown it away and put a Leo Kwan Badass bridge on it, and it would have tuned up, but it would have ruined the vintage collector's, value, because that's what I did with my 1964 Epiphone, which is the guitar that I ended up getting subsequently. And it had the original stop tailpiece on it, and I put a Leo Kwan badass and threw the original tailpiece away because it didn't work. So, wow. Was that your friend, Greg Yowler? Was that who you're talking about? Well, never met Les. No certain people who know him know. You know, the funny thing is, right? Because I had the opportunity to meet all these people through other friends, and I just never took advantage of it. Isn't that strange? Strange how that works, huh? But I have met some really cool cats from the old days, like Bill Marlowe from the radio world, the radio side of things. But yeah, my friend Stu Fink was good friends with Rusty, who was managing Les's affairs back in those days. Yeah, Les's son, Rusty, I should say. Well, yep. Now, what I wanted to say about the, I want to finish about the vintage stuff. Okay, the vintage guitars usually are, I do too, a lot. I can't play it. They're usually sought after because the thing is the jigs and the fixturing that they used to make these guitars back then was a lot looser. Didn't use CNC stuff, and so often you'll get like the neck of a guitar that's unique, and you go, wow, this just fits my hand like crazy, and you'll play another one and it won't be any good. You know what I mean? So I know a lot of players like that. I knew a guy that lived in Zebulon, North Carolina. Gosh, I forget his name, but he had a 1954 Les Paul, and he had it refinished. There were a couple companies like Strings and Things in Memphis that would do these specialized vintage finishes, you know, that look like, you know, faded versions of the real, you know, the real ones. And that Les Paul was, you know, he wouldn't even let me touch it. But, I mean, talk about its sound and playability. I went to another place. I saw these guys from North Carolina. They were playing Southern rock. And there wasn't a single Les Paul in that whole place that was any newer than 1959. It was nuts watching these guys. And the first Gibson Les Paul that I ever played was in 1956. And funny thing is the guy that had it found it in a pawn shop and got it for dirt cheap. And then he ended up selling it like for $100. And I was like, why didn't you sell it to me? You know, I really wanted it. He's like, oh yeah, I'm sorry, but I've never seen anyone 3D print a guitar, but you know, you can 3D print metal, right? And they have wood substitute materials. That's common. Thing is, though, is it's what, 350 pounds of pressure, of tension, basically the strings have. So, I mean, must be some pretty good materials. A lot of adjustability. But I'll tell you what you could do. There's no reason you couldn't 3D print the guitar body out of a really dense material, because you know, you could make whatever you want for cavities and things to hold, you know, the controls and pickup cutouts and things like, you know, you got your, you know, your tailpiece vibrato, whatever else. Good question. Wouldn't surprise me if that's the next thing, but people generally like wood, you know, and veneers. But that doesn't mean you couldn't do a 3D printed body and put a wood veneer on it, right? fist bump on that. Yes. And it still is. Lots of guitar shops. It is. I was in a guitar shop yesterday, and they have a separate area of the wall dedicated to ukuleles. So yeah. So let's see. We have nobody on Twitch. So by the way, if you guys are so inclined, please join us on live streaming.technology. That's our live streaming technology forums. And many of your favorite live streamers are there. We'd like to have you there. It's good for discussion and, you know, things about hardware, software, and in general. And also the pandemic community. This is hard to take off. This is not taken off very quickly. I think people are afraid. But it is a non-censorship platform where you can tell your stories, positive, negative, whatever, and it's just a forum that you can use to express yourself, because people just want to be heard. All right, now I need to go back to something that Mike said earlier. He's talking about the recumbent trike. That's one thing, but he said about looking up at the stars. Years ago, my Thai lawyer has 2 wives, and for the first year or 2 that I knew him, I only met his second wife, but I never met his first wife. And his first wife is named Mai, and he said, you know, would you like to go hang out with me and my first wife? And we're like, yeah, sure. So I was with my wife, Hui Chen, who she and I were not married. We were married the next year. We were still dating. So we went together to Mr. Van Chob's first wife's house. It was made entirely by hand out of rough-hewn wood. It was absolutely amazing. I got lots of pictures up. I should do this from the home, from the studio. But I really should prepare, because I've got tons of pictures. You know, it's only been recent years that I haven't really done as much photography as I used to, but just my Taiwan archive alone is about 50,000 pictures of Taiwan. I got pictures of Laos and Thailand going all the way back to 2004. And so I extensively documented this house and the village, and pretty amazing. No walls, you know, for the bedrooms and stuff. We just laid on a mattress with a mosquito net, you know. Now, Mr. Banchob and his wife were up they climbed up like a ladder and went into a bungalow on stilts, you know. Then they parked their car underneath it, kind of like a beach house, like in North Carolina. But we were in the main part of the house, and it was just wide open. It was really cool, wide open kitchen and stuff, and like a big living room in the back, which is again wide open, and had a bunch of, it's 3/4. I mean, it was like 3 sides lined with benches, and the backs of the benches were angled out like this, so you're, you know, leaning back, and we're just drinking sang som and having a blast out there in the middle of nowhere. But there's no electricity, and at nighttime, you know, we want to take a shower before we go to bed, and there's absolutely no lights at all. My wife and I went to the water pump out in front of the house, and we just took our clothes off, you know, hung our new clothes, you know, our sleeping clothes, you know, underwear and t-shirts, you know, and shorts and stuff on a tree, and our towel on a tree. So we took off our clothes, put it on a tree. You can't see, couldn't even see each other, you know. And we took a shower at the pump, you know, pump water into a bucket and wash up, you know, and then rinse off. And there's can't see anything. So we're in the middle of nowhere, doing stuff like this, really primitive, which I'm quite used to and actually kind of enjoy that kind of environment. But one of the things that struck me, and it's something you said, Mike, because we built a fire and there's a little bit of light, but I took my wife over to another section not too far away from the house. There was a big clearing, and I said, "Look up." And she said, "What?" And I said, "Kan, Samyan, Kan, Kan." She looked up and cowered, like something was gonna fall. And I gotta tell you, even for an old, astronomy buff like me, I grew up in Florida, in Virginia, North Carolina, and I used to go out to Virginia with snow on the ground. It would be ice cold, and it would be crystal clear. But I never saw stars in my life like I saw in Thailand. I mean, the Milky Way looked like it was just like you could just grab it. The biggest contiguous single structure discernible by the human eye is the arm of the Milky Way. Because you can't, if you can see a little fuzzy spot in the sky that might be a galaxy, you can't discern what it is, but you can discern that Milky Way arm, right? It's a spiral arm. And it was just, I still think about that. My dream is to pack up a really big, Schmidt-Cassegrainian GPS telescope, and it's in Uban, Ratchashima, so it's way out in the middle of nowhere. All they got is the cattle car bus. There's no VIP bus. It's like 6 hours of going like this and stopping every, 2 or 3 kilometers to let somebody on and off. Got chickens and stuff, taken on the bus. But the point is, going out in that remote place and seeing those stars is just so awe-inspiring. And it was, I'll never forget it. I can still see it in my mind's eye, So we don't have that kind of seeing here in Taiwan because we're it's too much ozone, too many pollutants from who across the Taiwan Strait. But every once in a while, the typhoon will come through and it clears it out. But don't get me wrong, there are some places, like if you go in the mountains are so high, and because they're higher than like Mount Fuji in Japan, here in Taiwan. See, the thing is we're 25 degrees. We straddle the Tropic of Cancer, so it's 24 and 25 degrees north latitude. If Taiwan was the same latitude, as say central Japan, all those mountains would be snow-capped all the time, like Fuji. But they're not, so they only have mild snow in the very winter time. But Jade Mountain is considerably over 4,000 meters. It's up there. This is the wasabi peanuts in my teeth. All right. Really? That's the hard part, isn't it, Mark? You walk around going, yeah, we bad, and you look up and going, we ain't so bad. Yeah. You realize that the book of Jeremiah, where it says that, mankind's way, mankind walks, he looks at his own steps, he directs the direction of his own steps, so you're kind of like, yeah. I don't know. Kenrod was working a lot lately. He messaged me and said that he had a lot of, he had some private events that he was working overtime, and so that's cool. And you'll be hearing from Kenrod because they I'm not going to spill the beans, but he made a lot of extra money, and they gave him a tip, and so he bought some live streaming equipment. That's all I'm going to tell you. But Mark, do you have any pictures? Beacon fell, huh? I can find that on Google Maps. I'll check that out. Somebody has to have like posted some of those astronomical photos on Google Maps, right? You know, people do that kind of stuff. So even in Taiwan, you know, some of these lodges and, you know, mountain cabs and things that they have, they'll show pictures, and even one of my friends went to some place down in Nantou and just used his mobile phone and like got the Milky Way, you know. So yeah, I have a Nikon. I haven't bought a new camera in a long time, but the last new camera I bought was the D7000. I bought it when it was in the heap of the C size sensors. I since I really wanted to get a Pentax, but you know, I don't really use a DSLR that much anymore. I've been doing all my photography with a gimbal and these cameras, and you know, like my Nikon, or we say Nikon, D80 was 10 megapixels, and my D7000 is 16 megapixels, and like I got a 48 megapixel on camera on this phone, and this phone I bought, you know, in October of 2019, and like some of the new Xiaomi's got like 128 megapixels and stuff. And I know it's not just megapixels, but the fact is they're now taking photographs in DNG, in the digital format, you know, in the RAW. And so it's crazy what you can do on a mobile phone. And there are whole websites and forums like on Flickr that are dedicated to like iPhone photos, and iPhones are really well suited for video and photography, more so than most Android devices, but there are a couple of Android devices that are designed for that. Sony has a phone that's made for live streamers. It's over $2,000 US. It is a beast. It's like God mode, you know, when you're live streaming on that phone. There's no way I'd pay that much money for it, though. But the point being that you can do a lot these days, and even this phone has manual mode. And so I haven't used my D7000 in so long that my aftermarket Sigma stabilized lens won't unmount from it. It's fused to it. I press the button hold the body, I press the button on the body, and I turn the lens barrel, and won't budge. I'm going to have to take it to a camera shop, and they're going to have to disassemble the darn thing and get it loose to see what's going on. But I probably should sell the camera because I don't use it anymore. But see, the problem is, you know, for years I shot only in JPEG. I never post-processed. I got really upset with some of the community. Like there's a Taiwan Photography Club on you know, a physical club, you know, and there's Taiwan Photography. Look on Flickr. Actually, there's a Flickr group called Women of Taiwan. I started that years ago. It's grown. It's like huge. I also started food photos from Asia on Flickr. That's huge too. But people keep posting food in there from like California and stuff, which was supposed to be in Asia. But I haven't actually used a regular camera, you know, in a long time. So, well, it depends on your needs. I mean, if you are making your living, you know, off of it, it depends. It really depends on what you're trying to do. But again, you know, which one to get? Now, since I was looking at the, oh, my little roach is buzzing. I went to a claw machine and I got one of those little roaches, the vibrating roaches, so they kind of go by themselves on the floor, because you know I'm such a joker, right? Somehow he turned on. I'm beginning to think that Sony is the way to go. The Sony mirrorless cameras, and some of the Sony stuff I've seen, you know, the dynamic range on them, because I love Pentax, and my first telescope was the Saihi Pentax, and I was looking at it, I think it was the K1, the full frame one, and it had optical stabilization. It was a stabilization internal to the the body, some kind of pixel moving stabilization. I don't remember. Had built-in GPS, much stuff, because I had to buy a separate GPS unit for my Nikon, and I would plug it into the hot shoe in the top, and so wherever I went I could geotag my photos, right? Because I think that was important for me. But I started looking at some of the photographers that I knew that were using like the Sony A7. That's going back a ways, and I was in the store the other day, and some of the new Sony cameras are tiny and they're incredible. But the other thing too is they do video really, really well. See, my D7000 does video, but it's 1080p. Now the thing, right? Okay, thanks. Thank you. The thing is, though, is if I want to use the optical stabilization in my Sigma lens while I'm shooting video, then you hear the noise. You know what I'm saying? It makes like a buzz, like or some kind of weird noise, right? As you know, the internals of it are moving to stabilize the image. You know, there's a limit to it, but you know, the normal shake and stuff, it gets straightened out, right? So yep, that's what he is, claw machine. But you hear it, like I'll be and it's not really that good of stabilization to be using for video. It's designed for still photos to keep them from blurring. And so I'll use video, and you still got the horizontal shake and stuff. So you're saying, okay, well then I'll just get a gimbal for the DSLR, and then you're looking at something with, you know, two handles on it, like you're driving a tank, and it's a monster thing, and it's like, you know, it's $1,500 for this thing, and it's like, why would I do that? I can shoot 4K in my phone, and I've got like the DJI Osmo 4, I've got the Smooth 3 Xeon. Like, as soon as I started using those gimbals, I said, I'm never using my DSLR for video ever again, never. And I'm an early adopter. I had an SD card based video recorder in 2005, a little flip out on the side, and it said that it took quote near DVD quality. So it's like, it's not even 480p. So I have a lot of those videos, and they're shaky. They're shaky as unbelievable. And the way you held it was kind of like a gun, but the design was if you put your finger on it a certain way, it would cover the mic. So all your video sounds like that. So it's bad. So okay, cool. All right. Yeah. So, I mean, here's the thing. It's, you know, I'm not a rich guy, but, you know, I'm doing okay, right? So I can afford to buy some toys if I want to, because I outfitted my studio and all that stuff, right? But I'm putting my money in the studio, and it's not like I'm afraid to spend more money. What I want to do is I want to wait and get some return from that and then spend more, right? But for me right now, I mean, I have the D7000. I'm going to tell you right now. And so I've got a 28 to 200 zoom Sigma lens. It's an older one. They now make a 28 to 250, but this was an older one. And I took it to Sigma. I took my Nikon with the lens to Sigma down in Taiwan, and I said, would you please match the lens to this camera perfectly? And they did, and they did it for free. Took about 30 minutes. I went and got something to eat and came back. And with the Sigma optically stabilized lens and the D7000, if you can't get good pictures, it's not the camera. You know what I'm saying? So like if I said, oh yeah, I want to get one of those Sonys, or yeah, oh yeah, I want to get one of those, the Pentax and stuff, it's just vanity at that point, you know. The full frame, I don't do poster size stuff. I don't sell photographs to magazines. I remember there was an article I read years ago that some magazines said they'll only accept like 64 megapixels or something, and so like you had to use like a Hasselblad or something. There's several cameras that I saw that were about 15,000 US dollars, and they're like this big, you know, medium format or large format. And these days, you know, half the stuff you see in the news is mobile phones, and they're 50 megapixels or they're 100 megapixels. You know, like this phone here. You know, these pictures that I take. This phone has a 48 megapixel setting on it, so when it takes a picture at 48 megapixels, it's square. It's, you know, 1-to-1, and it's really detailed. And when I want to take something detailed, like if I'm taking something to document it, like I'm getting ready to do some work on a printed circuit board or something, and I want to remember exactly, you know, what it was before I put my soldering iron to it, I'll use the 48 megapixel, and I'll make sure it's perfectly in focus because I got the max amount of detail, and it's 1-to-1, and I don't care about the wide ratio, right? But this phone has a very wide screen because there's no notch and there's no hole. This screen has no hole in it at all because it's a pop-out camera. This camera here is actually external. It pops out of the body. So that's why when I change front to back lenses, you'll hear it going doo doo. That's the noise it makes as it's sliding in and out. I did not. Wow, that's cool. I never had that is a Hyundai Elantra with a wing on the back, and it sounds like it's tuned, but why would you do that? Anyway, I don't know anybody in his organization or anybody that worked with him, but anyway, I just heard he was a super guy, and I know I like him a lot. And you know, I don't use Spotify. I have Spotify, but I don't pay for the premium. I pay for KK Box, which is the service that we have here in Taiwan, and I have collected all the Tom Petty songs that I want, you know, to listen to. And I gotta tell you something, I was listening to him the other day, and I was like going through, and I was going, oh, that's a great song. Like, oh yeah, that's a great song. I was like, oh yeah, that's, you know, it's like, oh, I forgot about that one. I was like, man, this guy was a hit factory. And, you know, that's the problem. That's the problem for a guy like me, because, you know, being around in the 80s, it was like, listen to the radio in 20 minutes. It's the Eagles, it's Bad Company, Queen, David Bowie. I mean, come on. The Doobie Brothers, okay? It just, you know, ZZ Top. It goes on and on and on. And we took that stuff for granted. Thought nothing of it. And so the other day, I got an email from HAPS. Oh. They invited me to join this channel. And the hook line was, you know, join us for the freshest hip hop. Why would I want to do that? First of all, freshest hip-hop is kind of a contradiction in terms, since how hip-hop's been around since the 90s. The freshest classic rock. Anybody ever say that? I mean, I understand what they're saying, but I think pretty much it's been done. I mean, okay, let me guess, it's a loop. Somebody made a beat, and it's all about beats, and they're just, doing rhythmical stuff, and not a whole lot of singing, but a lot of yelling. So that was the thing. You listen, you mentioned Tom Petty, and it's funny because I just, like last week, was looking on KKBox, and I procured about 15 of his songs, and I just put them on a loop, man. I put my earbuds in. This is my new Redmi Pro 3s that are noise canceling. I gotta tell you, man. Well, Mark, if you like sax solos, I don't know if you're familiar with my stuff on SoundCloud, but if you go to SoundCloud.com, this is easy to find. Go to SoundCloud.com and then / Phoenix Media Forge. That's my studio. We'll just run it together. Phoenix Media Forge. Then you'll find my studio account, right? And I have a song called How Could I Ever Let You Go? And the thing is, in the solo, right, where most people would expect a guitar to be, I put a sax in. I just didn't want to do a guitar solo. Oh, wow, that's fantastic. 3 seconds is great. Yeah, so I didn't necessarily think, that it was that a guitar solo was essential. Needed a break, needed a solo. And my friend Jim Allard, who's since passed on, he did what I thought was a great solo. And if you look in Phoenix Media Forge, on SoundCloud.com, you'll find several other tunes with Jim playing sax on. Woman is a tune that he played the soprano sax. He played a I thought was a really, really cool, really soulful soprano sax. Of course, that looks like a clarinet. That's pretty interesting. He played a soprano sax solo. And he and my personal manager, George Daniel, also played sax. And there's a couple other tunes where in the studio they played sax together, and I had both those guys on stage with me playing sax. So live, I had 2 sax players, and Jim also played keys, and I had another keyboard player too. So my live band had 2 sax players and 1 keyboard player, but 1 sax player would also become the keyboard player. So it went like this, you know what I'm saying? It went like that. So, yeah. I'm not familiar with that, but if you want to send me a link to that, that's cool. Mark, it's better to send me links online, okay? And my Line account accepts people, messages from people who aren't on my friends list. And you can find me because you're in the late night group, right? So just... Because I know you mentioned you said that you sent some links on Twitter, but unless I remember later tonight, or the next day, oh yeah, I got to check Twitter. I'll never see him, but I would be very interested to hear that. That's cool. I remember this cat we had in the studio years ago, and he walked in, and I never saw him before. Somebody, who was it? I forget. I really forget, man. It's in Boston, and back in the late 70s, and we needed a sax player, so. I may have. That was a long time ago, but I think I have, now that you mention it. Yeah. Of course, Joe Ciccarelli, who started out in Fleetwood, where I used to work. Joe Ciccarelli produced this stuff, and they had the gated reverb on the snare on Hurts So Good. That was the first time Joe Ciccarelli actually gated reverb. But thanks, Mark. But this cat came in. I forget what the deal was. I think Dave Dassinger was doing a session, and his name was Cookie. And you know, he just came in, and he's like, "Yeah, man, I'm ready. Just let me. All right, just run through it. You know, put his headphones on. He's like, getting the level and stuff, and all of a sudden, okay, you ready to do a take, man? Yeah, man, I'm cool. Boom, nailed it. It's like, nailed it. And then it's one of those things, right? Where the guy's okay, and as soon as the tape stops, he's going like this because he's taking his mouthpiece off because he knows, this means nailed it. He's taking his mouthpiece off. He's putting it back in the case, and we're like, yo, man, come on here in the control room and listen to this. So, but one time I was doing a session, right? A lot of people don't know this, but sax players are really, really picky about their sound. And that's okay. They should be, because I'm picky about my sound too. But what it is, there's a pickup truck towing a jet ski, and you almost never see that in Taiwan because most people don't have trailers. This guy's towing a jet ski. Wow. But they don't trust anybody. Okay. I've had sax players come in the studio and as an engineer tell me how they want their sax recorded, that kind of stuff, So where were we? Oh, I was in DC, and I was producing a record down in DC for some cats that I used to play with, and I never heard the tune until I got there. So the night before, he's actually a drummer who wrote the tune. It's a good tune. And he's showing me on guitar how it goes. And we got in the studio, and I said, "Man, this tune needs a sax solo." And he's like, "No, man, I thought you'd do a guitar solo." I said, "No, man, it's got to have sax solo, man, because it's a rock tune, but it's got a soul feel to it. You know what I mean? So it's got to have that soul feel." So we asked the studio manager. We asked the studio manager, to get us one of his session players. And so this guy came in, and he's really good. He's competent, But it's really funny because MJ knows how to mic a sax. I know how to record sax, and I know what effects to put on. I know what to do with EQ, everything. But the problem is you can't get that in the Q mix in the studio on your headphones. So the guy, he blows apart. Okay. So I play it back and listen to him, and I said, "What do you think?" And he says, "Well, the tone's a little thin on it, and it really needs some effects on it." And I said, "I want you to let me worry about the engineering. What I'm asking you is, what about your performance?" Now this is interesting because I went into this section, right? And Mark just said, "How does it sound on stage playing compared to listening in the theater and hall stadium?" Oh, I really, really got an answer for that. Really? 2021. Okay. Now I'd like to see it, but Farm Aid was a long time ago. Farm Aid was a long, long time ago. But okay, cool. I'd like to see that. I'll look that up. So what happened was I said, let me worry about the engineering. What do you think about your performance? And he said, I'm happy with how it sounds. I said, okay, what I want you to do is come in the control room now and listen to what I'm listening to. And his jaw dropped. He said, "Man, I never heard my sax sound so good." I said, "I told you, man, but you're not going to get that in the headphones." Now, Mark, stage monitoring and stage volume is a huge deal, and it's way different. I used to use wedge monitors and so forth. Back in the days, I always had really, really good crews, very competent, very diligent, and they were really protective. Like, I remember we played tracks in Long Island, and I was backstage, and I came out the stage to look at something, and they're like, "Excuse me, what do you want?" I said, "I want to check something." They said, "Go in the dressing room. We're not finished." And I'm like, "Okay," because they're in charge of that. You know what I'm saying? Doesn't matter I'm the lead singer of the band or not. When the engineer tells you something, they're in charge, right? When the stagehand tells you something, he's in charge, and we have those people for that reason. But we did a show in Rhode Island once, and we did a sound check, and it sounded great, and then broke down, and then the opening band came on, and then after they did their set, we were in the dressing room, and our crew's setting up, and I came out, and my microphone stand is right where it was supposed to be, but the monitor was on the other side, and I couldn't hear it. And so I struggled through 3 songs. I just couldn't do it. I was blowing my voice out trying to hear myself. Now, I have a unique ability, and that is I can open my eustachian tubes, that go from here to here, okay? I can open my eustachian tubes from my ears to here at will. Like when you are swallowing, or some people say, like, you go like this and blow your nose, or like that, to clear your nose. I can do that at will. Like if I'm diving or something, I can, like right now, I can just open them, right? And so I used to do that as a monitor. People think it's nuts, but people who are singers know what I'm talking about. You hold a note, you go, and you open your station tubes, and suddenly the sound goes right directly to your eardrums, and it's louder than anything else. But the problem is you can't do that through a whole song, because it affects the nasal tone of, so you can't sustain it. So I would, be singing, and open my eustachian tubes just for a second, just to make sure I was like on the right pitch. And I said, no, that's it. So we always had a rule. If something's not right, leave the stage. So I said, that's it, good night. And I ran off the stage. And everybody instantly unplugged and followed me backstage. So what's wrong? I said, well, look where the monitor is. And Eddie, who was at that time working as a crew chief, he was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry, man. He ran out there. And they reconfigured it, moved it over. Okay, so it was only like 3 or 4 minutes. And we came out, and the crowd was like, they'd never seen anybody do anything like that. And so, never missing an opportunity to be a wise guy, I said, look, we're stars. And we just can't have it unless it's not right. And I'm just joking around, right? Hey, Ken, fist bump. Mike was asking about you. We're all wondering where you were. And the crowd went nuts. They busted out in applause. Just clapped. I thought it was like the coolest thing anybody ever said. Hey, we're stars, and we can't have it if it's not right. Kind of the opposite of my real personality, right? But after using these wedges, after all these years, it got to be such a pain in the neck. So one time, we played a gig. I don't know what happened, but I think we played a gig where, we had our own sound system, and it was quite big. And, oh, well, that's terrible. That's terrible. Sorry to hear that, Mike. So you can't, go, hey, you. Yeah. Well, Ken, I kind of spilled the beans. I didn't tell what happened. But, I said you've been working a lot, and you got a tip, and you bought some live streaming equipment, but I didn't tell anybody what it was, okay? So, if you decide to watch the replay, you'll hear that. So Ken has been busy. But as I recall, I know Mark. I'm just you know me. I'm just all over the place. Somehow or another, we had some extra equipment because we weren't using it. We had a JBL 4560, which is a low-end cabinet, and a horn, and we decided to set them on either side of the stage, okay, as what we call side fills, right? So far side of the stage, and they're pointing in. And yeah, Ken bought a gimbal. He bought a DJI OM4. All right, OM4 Club. And no wedges in the front. That was it. So just the side fills. And the difference in the monitoring on the stage is absolutely dramatic. It was incredible. Now, it's been a long time since I have been in the big time and doing any of this kind of stuff, right? So now the new thing is IEMs, in-ear monitors. Those scare me to death. I do not want to wear them. What they do is they take a mold of your ear, because they're all different, and then they make a specialized transducer, and it's got an ear hook, and most of them are wireless. They go down to a belt pack. And so these days you take an iPad, like even the X32 console has, they use what they call the P16 system. And you can use your iPad. You say, okay, I want drums this much, my own vocal this, I want guitars this. You make your own mix, right? But the problem is, I don't know. Let me see. I've got 46% battery, but I got a battery bank, so who knows? Doesn't matter. And my mom said I can stay out as long as I want, so there you go. But thanks, Mike. I appreciate it. I'm scared to death of IEMs because I've heard so many stories about transients and engineers making mistakes and blowing people's ears out and stuff, and I got enough problems with that. I used to wear earplugs on stage. After all those things that used to happen, I wore earplugs on stage, and it made such a tremendous difference with my ability to hear myself sing and be able to control my voice where I wasn't blowing out so much air just to overcome the band. I would just sing normally. And it got to where I could do like 4 sets or 5 sets a night. It was really, really great. But there's a huge difference with what you hear on the stage compared to what the audience hears. And they don't make an attempt to duplicate what the audience hears on the stage. Because for the musicians, that's not what they need. They need to hear, each musician needs to hear themselves above everybody else, right? So the monitors, like the drum monitors, a lot of times the drums will use side fills, which I think is kind of a mistake because sometimes the side fills bleed into the mics, but it depends if they're using pickups or the electronic drums or not. But, the drummer's going to be louder, and sometimes oftentimes the drummer has a click track in his or her headphones that nobody else has. Okay, and they put them in the headphones because they don't want the click track in the monitors because if it's picked up by the mic, then it might be picked up by the house. But so they got their 3, 2, 3, right? So then that keeps the drummer on time. Nobody else hears the click track, but they just hear the drummer and they follow the drummer. So the drummer is locked into the click track. So, and the other thing too is, headphones are not stereo. They're binaural. But with stereo, even if something's only in the left channel, your right ear hears some of it. But it's the time delay between the two that localizes it to where it is. So, yeah. So these days for me, like when I played in Taoyuan Stadium in 2009, I used the Brian May guitar and the Vox amp. And as I recall, I didn't have to use earplugs because the stage was so large. It was huge. And they put my guitar in the monitor, and they said, you don't have to, of course, it's a small amp with a 10-inch speaker, but it's actually quite loud. It's 30 watts. They said you don't have to crank it up so high. And of course, this whole conversation happened in Chinese. It was pretty interesting because I learned a lot of new terms that I've been using for years in English, but didn't hear in Chinese. And they put my guitar in the monitor, and it was fine. And then so I did not wear my earplugs then because it wasn't overwhelmingly loud. But in the old days, when I used to use one or two complete stacks, like head and two cabinets, head and two cabinets, I always wore earplugs. I lost a lot of hearing due to the orange amps from England. Yeah, those orange amps, man. It absolutely is. That's not a dumb question. You never ask dumb questions. Absolutely. Absolutely. It's different. But a good engineer could compensate for that because the crowd absorbs sound. They really do. But usually what happens, it takes them like one whole song it takes one whole song to get everything like straightened out, right? Remember, I saw Foreigner at where the heck was it? It was in I forget. It was in Massachusetts, some famous thing in Massachusetts. Back before Lou Gramm, poor guy, had all his medical problems and stuff. He was still in really good shape, and boy, he could sing. And they started out with that tune, "A Long, Long Way From Home," Foreigner, right? And it starts out with the it was a Monday, a day like any other day. Remember that song, right? And the first couple words were cut off. He went, "Day like any other day." The whole thing was so. My friend Dave D said, "Fired." That would be it, fired. And some of these engineers, right? And some of the bands, if you have feedback just once, you're done. So, I actually had a couple opportunities. Kool and the Gang needed a mixer. Back in those days, like 1978, they're paying $2,500 a week. Because my friend Dave D told me, he says, MJ, he says, "You'll never be a rock star." And I said, "Why not?" He says, "You're too good of an engineer. You get tied up in engineering, and they'll eat you up. They'll use you on everything, man. You'll just never get a chance to play." I'm like, "Yeah, I guess you're right." Because I did a show, and Dave D was there, and I had two mics on the drums. And he was like, "Well, you put them in the right place, man, because it sounds perfect, you know." And he was really impressed with the mix that I got in the house. But you don't, on stage, you don't try to duplicate what you hear out there. And the sad truth of it is that when you're the star of the show, you're the musician on stage, you don't get to enjoy the show like the people do, but you get to enjoy performing. That's a whole different level. And I have never had as much fun as I had in the two big shows that I played at Taiwan Stadium. The second one, we had about 10,000 drunken Thai people. It's pretty amazing. But what you can hear is, you can definitely hear the house coming back, bouncing off. Especially if they're doing something with drums. You can just hear you can hear it rattling. And sometimes the stage vibrates, so. Yeah, I saw something on YouTube about him the other day. He's 70 years old now, and he did a version of I Want to Know What Love Is, right? Yeah, exactly, yeah. I didn't pursue that gig because I just wasn't interested in it, you know. I had a couple opportunities that I didn't do because I didn't want to go there, you know. But so yeah, this thing I saw with Lou Gramm, he was okay. Well, I appreciate it. 70 years old, and he was at a show, and he was talking about when they recorded I Want to Know What Love Is, and he said we had this Baptist church, and it had the choir from the church, and just people from the congregation, and he said, we don't have those people here with us today. He says, but we have all of you. And the crowd was like, yeah, they went nuts. And I gotta tell you, he's, for a guy that's had cancer and all this stuff, and I didn't realize this. I didn't know. I just read the comments. I haven't looked it up. But he's had several, and I can relate to this, he's had several bouts of serious medical problems. And for a guy that's been through all that stuff, I think he sounded damn good. And you got to cut people some slack, because that guy's a legend, and I'm not. He is. He's a legend. And so the point is, if he's sitting on a park bench, man, just singing Mary Had a Little Lamb, it's still Lou Graham. You know what I mean? Yeah. And that's all that matters. So there you go. I am a legend, though, and just in my own mind. And how that works, right? So that, and what is it now? About $2.50, about $3. You can get a coffee at Dunkin' Donuts. So, Mark and Mike, if you're so inclined and you want to check out, SoundCloud.com/Phoenix Media Forge, then you can check out the sax solos in those tunes. I'm a legion of one. Thank you. I'm a legion of one. So, is there anything else anything else interesting that I did that no, because I showed all you guys all that stuff. I'm wondering if I'm just trying to keep from being too boring. Oh, is this? Sorry, I'm looking at this. Yeah, took Phoenix and Mommy bowling, but I don't really want to show you those. Oh yeah, you know what? We have this little thing here in Taiwan that I want to show you guys. I'm pretty sure it's a Peltier device. This, and of course, it's in simplified Chinese because it's made in China. This is a US. That's okay. This is a USB-C mobile phone cooler. You see that? And it's 15 watts. And of course, because it's made in Asia, it has an LED in it, and the LED is like blinking all the time and changing colors. But it's magnetic, so it doesn't work on my phone because my phone's not magnetic. But I'm pretty sure it's a Peltier device, and the way that and the way that it takes the heat away from your phone. Now, so this is another shot of it, and this cost 428 NT dollars. Okay, so just to give you an idea, like 300 NT is about $10. So this thing is like $13 for this. But I'm not using it on my phone because my phone is not magnetic. So I'm using it on something else. But anything that's like ferrous, steel that sticks to, it will cool, and it's got a USB-C connector on it, so it's pretty cool. But I bought it because my phone overheats sometimes, and I was really disappointed because I went to stick it on and it fell off. I'm like, what's going on? I stuck it to my car door. It stuck right on my car door. It's like, great, okay, I can use it to cool my car door, but I can't use it to cool the phone. So, yep. Mike, why is this live stream so fantastic? I'm just a guy, you know, with like uncombed hair, just drinking some alcohol in the park, just talking, man. It's cool. I mean, I'm no Rick Beato. I've done a lot of the same stuff Rick Beato has done. The difference, though, between Rick Beato and myself is that I quit the business, gave up. Fist bump to you. I got to get my hair cut too, early next week. Which reminds me, I don't know if George is going to be listening later, but I have a business meeting with JTS next week. Thank you. And we're going to be talking about, you know, moving forward and what we can do with instructional videos and, you know, and telling people how to, you know, introducing their products and so forth. It's going to be really good. So, all right. See you next time, Ken. Thank you so much. So, yeah, and I'm going to bring my new glasses because I really like how they look, black frames. And I got to get rid of these. You know, the thing is, I put the new glasses on, and all of a sudden I'm like, I can see so much better. Then I took these off, and I realized they're all scratched up. And you know why they're scratched up? Because of my camera, especially on this side. Yeah, JTS, the microphone guys. You know them, the JTS microphone guys. Yeah, I'm finally going to go meet with them. I'm going to meet the bigger boss. And I gotta pick out a present to give him. I think I'm gonna get some whiskey for him. Now the other cool thing, right, is, well, okay, Mike, I'm gonna tell you something. I've been doing Taiwan Live TV since 2016. I don't think my live streams are going to be mainstream. I don't think they are. I think they're going to be niche. However, I'm pretty adamant about finishing a couple of tunes and releasing them very shortly. And so if I can get some traction with my new tunes, then maybe, yeah, maybe so. That might be the thing. But also, I might be like switching over to my studio counter or something. Sorry, I'm just looking at these interesting cars. Some pretty interesting cars along here, but no GTRs. Haven't seen a GTR for a long time. I saw my first GTR in Taiwan 7 years ago. The reason I know is because Google Photos reminded me by showing me that today. But yeah, so if I could get some traction, you know, from that. But I'll tell you what did happen. I had a meeting, not last week, but the week before, with the boss of a fabrication company, right? And I have some designs for some studio furniture to integrate with consoles and with other equipment. And so I got the commitment from this boss to move forward on these furniture designs. He's going to help me. He's going to dedicate the resources, and I mean, he's got considerable resources. I mean, he's got the biggest bed on a laser cutter I've ever seen, robotic welding, powder coating. Now he's got copper and aluminum, non-ferrous casting capabilities. This guy can do anything. So, yeah, I'm going to have a blast. I'm going to design some new studio furniture. It's going to be affordable, modular, and collapsible for shipping. So that's going to be really, you know. Well, Mike, I don't want you to sell yourself short, okay, brother? I mean, seriously. You know, the only thing is I just have done a lot of stuff because of necessity, you know. I was on my own when I was really young. I left North Carolina. I was working a job. I went to Boston when I was 22 and never went back home. That kind of stuff, you know. So it's experience mostly, you know. That's all it is. And it's really hard knocks. And I've done some I've done some really boneheaded, stupid stuff. You know what I should do? I should do a show about all the stupid crap that I've done. Seriously, because I think it might help people. I got to think about that though, because there's so much. I got to whittle it down, you know, into like an hour. But that's all it is, man. And I have had some people in my life like Grady Moats, you know, Gary Dobbins, others who have helped me tremendously, you know. And so it's been, I've been blessed in that regard. So, oh yeah. Yeah, see, the thing about the Fireball, though, is you don't know this, but I do because I read a review. I was actually searching this out. Fireball is 35% alcohol, right? But it's 25% sugar. So with every shot of Fireball, you've got almost as much sugar as you have whiskey. That's terrible, so. Thanks, Mark. I appreciate it. And, you know, it's always a pleasure. And you never ask stupid questions. You're asking questions like, you know, about the stage volume versus what the audience hears. You ask questions You ask questions about packaging. You know, packaging weight, how that figures into, you know, shipping products and stuff. So, no, man, you get it. You always get it. So, good to see you. Take care, man. And we've been on, gosh, you know something? What's really funny? It's an hour and 37 minutes I've been on. Whenever I start a live stream, because I'm looking at the camera. I mean, I'm looking at, the counter. You know, the broadcast timer. And when it's like 6 minutes, 12 minutes, 15 minutes, I'm thinking, how am I going to get through this? Or we're afraid to ask. But yes, same principle. That's right. That's right. And you know, I've had some people ask me some really stupid questions. I had a guy that was supposed to be an independent A&R person ask me, what is a fade out? You know, at the end of a record, what's a fade out? Uh-oh. Sorry, that was my... I'll explain that in a second. So instead of making him, you know, feel like he was stupid and shaming him, I just said, well, you know, that's the end of a record where the volume fades down to zero till, you know, it goes away. We call it a fade out. He was like, oh. He knew what it was, he just didn't know what it was called, so. Thank you, Mike. Well, I'm going to have some stuff pretty soon. I know I've been saying that for a long time, but I have a couple of new tunes coming along that are actually, to me, I surprised myself. I think they're better than I expected. And one of the songs is about how bad things are right now. And there's a lot of hate and a lot of strife, and it's unnecessary. But really, you know, all you need to do is just show a little bit of love to people. That's it. Just, you know, you don't have to go crazy. Just a little bit, and it goes a long way. Just show a little bit of consideration, a little love, you know. Remember, even the Beatles said, all we need is love, right? And so I'm not copying the Beatles, but really all we do need is a little love. And people nowadays are just so offended at everything. The latest one I saw was a transgender woman was at a fast food drive-through. Now, I don't have any problem calling her a she. That's what she wants to be called. I have transgender friends here in Taiwan. I call them whatever they want to be called. I don't care. So she gives her credit card to the person. And it's a transgender woman, so this person is a male who transitioned to female. Well, the credit card has a man's name on it. So they called her he. And this person got just wildly offended and was calling out the manager and, what are you doing for transgender education and all this stuff? And asking, so what do you think I look like? And he asked the manager, or she asked the manager, sorry, what do you think I look like? And the manager said, I think you look like a man. And then this person put the camera on themselves, and it looks like a man with a wig and makeup. But it's like that person chose to be really offended by that. But he kept saying, the manager kept saying, but we looked at the name of the credit card. And you know something? When you're at a drive-through and you're in the restaurant and you're working in the restaurant, right? And you're trying to process these orders, are you looking in the car? Are you going like this? Are you scrutinizing the car? No way. You don't even look at the person in the car. You're looking at the food. You're looking at the order. You're looking at the money and stuff. It's like, okay, right, so they got the credit cards. Like, okay, here you go, sir, because it says, you know, Steve or Michael or something like that. And it's like, you know, I didn't notice the lipstick, and maybe you identify as a woman. You know, so what we got to do is we got to show more love to people. We got to just show more love, you know, on both sides of the equation. There are so many more things that are much more important than that. And you know, I spend a great deal of time in Thailand where there are probably more transgender people per square meter than any other place I've ever been, and I never had a run-in with anyone there, ever. And over here in the high life is a female who tries to look masculine. So much so that a couple of times I walked in, and again, I don't pay a tremendous amount of attention to these people. I don't look at them and scrutinize them, right? I walk in and there's a person behind the counter and says, hey, how you doing? And the problem is, I called her sir. I did it 2 different occasions. Didn't say anything. Didn't bat an eyelash. Just answered me. So, what, tonight? No way. No way. So, I went back to the store tonight and I saw her again. And the transaction that I had with her didn't require that I use, you know, sir or ma'am or anything like that. But let me tell you something. This is really interesting because, all right, talk about Chinese. People wonder why the whole gender pronoun thing isn't such a big deal in Chinese, like she and he, which are distinctly different. When I would write procedures that would involve talking about a person doing something, I would write S/HE. So it means he or she, and nobody ever objected to any of those, the use of that, because I think that's a proper use, because you don't know if a person is going to use this tool or do this thing is going to be male or female or anything in between. But here's the thing. In Chinese, although it is written differently, it uses a symbol for female and male. The way to say she or her in Chinese is ta, and the way to say him or her is ta. It's the same phonetic. So that's why it's not such a big deal in Chinese. You can just say ta, and it applies to everybody, and they can make up their own mind if you meant this or that. It's pretty interesting. But I did hear my first politically correct dad joke the other day, and I spit my beer listening to it. Hey, that's a Miata. Okay, here you go. What is, okay, I'm going to ask this question. I'm going to wait for a response. What is chocolate's pronouns? Chocolate pronouns. What's the pronouns for chocolate? Anybody know? It's got to be obvious. What's the pronouns for chocolate? Call 1-800-254-TALK. Boy, oh boy. That was the old Talk America Radio Network. Toll-free number is amazing. So what are the pronouns for chocolate? Anybody know? When I tell you guys, when I tell you what chocolate's pronouns are, you're going to take a box cutter and you're just going to go like this, or on your her, she's. You got it. Her, she. That's it. Hilarious. I love dad jokes. And before I go, I got one, maybe more, dad joke for you. Okay. How much does a millennial weigh? How much does a millennial weigh? And I think we might have to end it on this. Welcome to our viewer, our single viewer on Twitch tonight. Thank you. All right. Here's the answer. How much does a millennial weigh? An Instagram. Yes, but do you know why it's called baker's chocolate? Now, this was something that I didn't know, and this was really, really interesting, because they have baker's chocolate here in Taiwan. We have a confectionery store, a baking store. It's fantastic. You got all kinds of, oh, it's amazing. We bought all the different nuts that we use to make our nut butter at home, you know. But why is it called baker's chocolate? Here's the hint. It has nothing to do with baking. And that's the part that freaked me out. It's because the man that started the company that produced 100% cacao chocolate was surnamed Baker. See, it doesn't say baking chocolate. It's Baker's chocolate. It's just like Hershey's. It's just like any of the other. So Baker's is just another family name. Pretty amazing, huh? When I lived in the Boston area, I was working for a company for a while that was in the Schrafft's building, where they used to make Schrafft's candy. It had been taken over by a realty company because, of course, they went out of business. And they broke it up and, you know, made all kinds of industrial spaces, but yeah, there you go. Schraff's candy. So Baker's is just like another candy company and chocolate company. All right, now I'm starting to get tired, and it is. Let me see what time it is. It is. Ooh, it's 12:47, and you notice my wife hasn't called me because she trusts me implicitly. So I'm going to sign off now, and you guys take care, and thank you so much for joining, and we'll see you next time. And if you have any kind of inclination to do so, I'd appreciate it if you would, I hate to beg, but if you wouldn't mind, liking and subscribing, it would help. Although I'm never going to be mainstream, and I know it. But thank you so much. I appreciate it. I'm safe here. I'm just going to finish my drink, hop on my bike, and ride home. You guys take care. We'll see you next time. Thank you so much for watching Taiwan Live TV. MJ Klein here, going to say Zai Jian, Wan An, bye-bye. Take care. That was so cool.